do in the next few minutes, I know we're going to have some time for Q&A, so we'll have a chance to get into some more details. But what I wanted to do was just to quickly first talk a little bit about President Obama's 2020 goal, which I think a lot of you know about. I want to talk in particular the impact for the Latino community and what we're doing in the particular office that I run, the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. And then I'd love to then talk a little bit about, begin the conversation of what we think the partnership can look like. And we know, and I know from my old hat when I was working with KLRN as well, we know that this is nothing new. This is what you all are doing, what we've been doing with the public media side for a long time. Stepping up, helping communities take on these tough problems, to learn, to educate, and to problem solve. So the question is, what's the next iteration going to look like? So the first thing I wanted to talk about was President Obama's 2020 goal. So a lot of you may have heard about this, but we wanted to go ahead and I wanted to mention it again, because for us it really kind of drives a lot of the educational work for us throughout the administration. The President has challenged us to once again be #1 in the world with having the highest percentage of our population having a piece of paper beyond high school by the year 2020. We used to be #1 in the world. You heard Pat talking about it. We've now dropped to 12th across the planet in terms of the number of folks in our population who have some form of a degree beyond high school. When we look at high school graduation rates in particular, you talk about the dropout crisis, we've dropped to 18th in the world. Pat also mentioned in the really important fields of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, we've taken a big hit there, both on the math and the science side. I think 21st out of 30 in the OECD numbers when we look at science, and 25th out of 30 when we talk about math literacy. And our strongest performers, the smartest kids in our country, have dropped behind everyone else as well. I think we're 13th out of 30 on the science side, and I think 21st out of 30 on the math side. So we know there's a lot that needs to be done for us to get back to where we were before. You heard the governor talk about it. The governor is always a hard act to follow, but he's got it down, right? We know that there are a number of reasons we need to do this. The President has mentioned this so many times that it's the right thing to do. We have a moral obligation to make sure that we offer the American dream to all our kids. But the governor in particular has been able to kind of help people understand a really important piece, which is our role within the global economy. And just the flat, let's get down, self-interest, what it's going to take for our communities when we think about the economic impact of what's happening. And as the President has said so many times, those countries that already have us, those countries that are out-educating us today, are going to be outperforming us tomorrow. So we know that it's in our own self-interest to really kind of step it up and to kind of move forward. Now, the President, we feel very fortunate the President has put education at the top of the agenda. My office, when I first started, one of the challenges we had was that, how many of you had even heard of this office? White House, so a handful of folks, right? You guys know a lot of stuff. So what happened was we found out pretty quickly, the office that I run has been around for 20 years, since the first President Bush. And what we found out pretty quickly was that unless you were in DC, unless you were really tied into the Beltway, most folks didn't even know this office existed. So one of the first things we had to do was to kind of get out across the country to introduce ourselves to the community, to let folks know that they had friends at the White House, at the Education Department, across the administration, when it came to the Latino community and to education in particular. But as we had these community conversations, we were in San Diego, and one of the parents stood up, and I always quote him because he challenged us, and he said, "Don't tell us what you value, don't tell us what you believe." You all know this very well coming out of the public media forum. "Show me your budget, and I will tell you what you value and what you believe." And so I think we feel really good because the challenge with education is, as so many of you know, as the governor can tell you, this is one of these all-American, apple pie, bipartisan, everyone's on board, but sometimes stepping up to really make it happen. Look at where the budget cuts have been taking place over the past few years. Everyone's on board with education, but it's K through 12, it's higher ed. We were just in California and we were talking about with Governor Brown, best case scenario with the higher ed. This is the best case scenario. That the Cal State system and the UC system just are about to take hits of $500 million. That's the best case scenario. And we know the same thing is happening in all the other states. So we feel fortunate that President Obama has matched the talk of education being a priority for the country, with matching it with new resources and new dollars. But at the same time, you all know, you know exactly how this works. At the end of the day, most of the dollars are coming, or as a lot of folks are telling us around the country, are not coming from Sacramento, Austin, Tallahassee, you name Santa Fe, you name the state capital or the local district. So while we have increased the resources and have done some really different things, we know the challenges for the communities that they face on the ground are going to continue as states and local districts continue to challenge with their own fiscal crises. So it's even more important for partners like yourselves to stand up with us to really continue to play that role that we've got going forth in the communities. But we feel fortunate that the President has stepped up. I think you're going to hear as we come forward in the next few years, I think you're going to be hearing pretty soon in a State of the Union speech and moving forward a lot of the ongoing matching of the talk with the proposal of dollars and resources to really make sure that education is at the top of the agenda. The President sees our education agenda as a long-term strategy for jobs. You heard the Governor kind of talking about those numbers, so we know how critical it is. The second piece is how the Latino community fits into this conversation. And as the President has said, and we all know, and it's important, the message we're trying to get out across the country, is that the future of the United States is inextricably linked to the future of the Latino community. The Census Bureau numbers are just coming out. We'll know in the next few months as they start to go deeper into the detail. But even before we jumped into the 2010 census figures, we knew that the Latino community was already estimated to be at about 52 million, 48 million kind of on the mainland, and nearly 4 million on the island of Puerto Rico. And contrary to what you heard in some of the debates in the midterm elections, yes, the Puerto Ricans count. They are American citizens. So about 52 million total. So a lot of people don't know the numbers today. About 16.5% of the population, so Latinos are already the largest and fastest growing minority. We're the largest minority group within the pre-K through 12 system today at about 22%. So a little bit more than 1 of every 5 kids is a Latino kid in our public schools today. Over 11.5 million, and we're talking about some old stats. We know as we start to get the new numbers, they're going to be pushing over 12 million. So we know right now that one of the challenges is helping people understand that that's the reality today. I keep joking with all my friends who give these speeches about the Latino community, and they always put in that paragraph where they say, in the year 2050, and they give you this really huge number, and I keep telling them, take that out, because people don't realize that the numbers are there today. And that it is important for us to understand that there's been a shift to the demographics, and that we can't make it, we can't reach the President's goal without really kind of turning things around for the Latino community across the country. So less than half of our kids are in early childhood education programs. About half of our kids are not getting through high school. Only 13% of us have a college degree. And if I throw in community college degrees, it only bumps up to 19%. So our community is huge and massive and growing, and we have the worst set of education indicators of any of the groups in the United States. So it's crucial for us to step it up if we're going to get anywhere getting back to where we were as a country, and to anywhere trying to match President Obama's 2020 goal. The final piece I just wanted to talk about for a couple of minutes was what I think some of the potential is in terms of the partnership. I mentioned up front that, for us, and the Governor has talked about this, the only way these things are going to get resolved at the local level is all of us jumping in to play our role. So our office, which no one knew about it, a few hands went up. We used to spend most of our time kind of hanging out in D.C., and every once in a while we put out a report telling people how things were really bad. We decided, this is what's nice about having a president who's a former community organizer, we spend most of our time on the road. I'm going to leave in a couple hours as we go to Texas for another conversation. Our #1 priority is creating public-private partnerships and really seeing how the federal government can kind of come into play, but how do we also make sure that philanthropy and the business community and nonprofits and the faith-based sector, that everyone is involved kind of playing their role. And I know for us in particular, when I think about the potential here, it's about the things that public media, public television, public radio has done forever in this country. And that's helping us learn, helping us have great conversations, helping us figure out how we put some of the tough things onto the table, and how do we move forward in terms of solutions. You heard the Governor talking about positive stories, profiles of young people. We all know who've been involved with public media for a long time, that's some of the stuff we've already been doing. The question is, how do we take it to the next level? How do we really kind of get the social media to be a part of this piece? And I think in particular for us in the Latino community, one of the biggest challenges is going to be on the learning side. Not just in terms of great practices and great stories. So I see a lot of potential for the storytelling side. But for our community, a big chunk of this is just going to be helping learn how we get through the system. So, hands. How many of you were the first ones to kind of go to college in your family, right? I'm one of them. In our community, I gave you the numbers, it's off the charts. So what we face and the stories we hear across the country tell us that a big piece where I think you all can help us step up is how we help the community learn how the process even works. We hear a lot of myths about Latinos not wanting their kids to go to college. I've got a couple of kids who are in college right now. It was never a question that they were going to go to school. My mom, who barely got through high school, my dad, they didn't know anything about the college stuff, but we were going to go. So we believe in the American dream. We want it to happen. We just don't know how it works. When I think about being the first in my family, when I applied to college, I remember I had to go see the counselor in your senior year of high school, and I went 1981 when I was applying, and so you really didn't have computers at the house yet. And so I started to get these letters at the house, and they were from different universities, and I would open them up, and they would say, "Dear Juan." Like they had my name in there, so I'm like, this college really wants me to go there. And so I had to go see the counselor. The counselor said, so Juan, you're a good kid, you're a decent basketball player, so where are you thinking of going to college? Where are you going to apply? And I said, I'm applying to Harvard, Yale, and Brown. And I literally put the stack of envelopes because they had sent me the most number of letters. Literally, I knew nothing about how this worked. So what's one thing about not knowing the system, it's another sometimes not being encouraged in the system. So my counselor, who I will not name, Mr. Rohr, says to me, "Juan, you're a good kid. You're not going to get into any of these schools. You know, you're really good with your hands. Have you thought about maybe some other things?" My family, I grew up in the Midwest. We got to Topeka, Kansas. Yes, there are Mexicans in Topeka, Kansas. And we got there with the railroad. So the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe railroad shops, which were good jobs, which is where my dad, my uncles, my grandfather, we all worked there. So you didn't go to college, but you just went to go work for the railroad. So they said, maybe you can get a good job at the railroad. So I applied to all those because they sent me the most number of things. Got into all three of them. The 5'9" Mexican point guard went but it gets better, right? So I was very fortunate, and after I finished at Harvard, I won a Rhodes Scholarship, which was an incredible experience. At Oxford, I came back from Oxford, and I was back in Kansas for the holidays, and everyone has a crazy uncle, so for me it's my Uncle Rudy, so there's a bottle of tequila that I know he really likes, and so I went to go pick him up his favorite bottle of tequila for Christmas. You can't make these stories up. And I'm in line, and the guy turned to pay the cash register, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Rohr." He said, "Juan, it's great to see you. I always told you you could do it." He says, "So what are you going to do next?" I said, "I'm thinking of going to law school." He said, "Where are you applying?" I said, "I'm applying to Harvard, Yale, Berkeley, and Stanford." You can't make this stuff up. He says, "Well, Juan, you're a really smart kid. You did great. You're not going to get into any of those schools. That'll be $29.99. So we know that both for our community, both understanding the system, now that I've gotten through, I can share with my kids. I can tell them this is how it works. This is what the application process is about. This is what financial aid means. We know that there's just a huge gap in our community that I think public television and public radio could step up with us to partner with us both in Spanish and in English to say, here's how it works, here are the answers, come to the table with us, help us figure out how we stay in school, how we get through, so that we don't have the 50% dropout rate. And so I really look forward to the partnerships that we can have in Albuquerque, in San Antonio, with them across the country. And so if there's anything we can do, please let us know, but we look forward to the partnership. So once again, I want to say congratulations on the announcement today. Thank you.